The moon sat in the sky, slowly making its rounds as it had always done. It was full that night, the fullest it would be all year, shining brightly in the sky, casting everything in its pale, gentle light. The night was mild, and only the gentlest of breezes ruffled the leaves of the sleeping trees on the planet below. All was quiet. From the silent surface, something leapt into the sky, taking flight on strong wings, making nary a sound to alert anyone it was there at all. Quickly gaining speed, it flew up until it was but a small dot in the sky, indistinguishable from any other, flying so fast it would have made the quickest of Pegasi gape in awe. Soon it was free of the planet. Away from its harsh gravity, it allowed itself to let momentum carry it the rest of the way. Princess Luna landed on the moon. Small plumes of dust, undisturbed for unimaginable lengths of time, drifted up around her hooves into the brilliant white landscape. She sat and looked out at the craters and the mountains of the surface.
"Hello, dear moon,"
she said softly.
"I'm sorry I haven't visited in so long. The duties of a princess are many, and time is a precious commodity."
The moon was silent.
"I thought I would come to see you on this, your most beautiful of nights. I have thought of coming many times before, but this seemed the most appropriate of any."
Luna looked down at the planet spinning many miles below her. She could see its hills, its seas, its own mountains, not very much unlike the ones around which she stood.
"It is you who was my closest friend for all those years, shining bright, lighting the dark, a comfort for millennia. I thought that now, bereaved of me, perhaps you were lonely too."
The moon was silent.
"It is not bad, below. There are many who have forgiven me for my transgressions. I cannot be angry at my sister, no matter how much I care to try. She is kind in her way. Perhaps she understands my jealousy, how deep a green my envy. Who could not covet such a position as the sun?"
She gazed once more at the world below. She could see it, the burning star, coming ever nearer to claim its place, warming the earth and bringing the day.
"Perhaps it is fitting that we are sisters. The sun and the moon, our powers entwined. She is the older, as is the sun. It burned there in the sky long before the moon ever took its nightly watch, and has maintained such dominance. It brings the day, bustling with activity, while we, the younger of the two, can only slightly relieve the dark of night and watch the silence as it falls."
The sun crept across the far landscape below. Even from here, she could hear the sounds of life that followed.
"We are alone in our tasks, dear moon, as it always has been. The sun, a symbol for warmth and joy, as we are remembered for naught but a sign of the coming night, a time to lock one's doors and close one's eyes to what dreams we may bring."
The moon was silent.
There I go again. Maybe I am getting old, dear moon. I rattle on about my place even as our time grows short. I often wonder if I bore you with such stories.
She turned her gaze to the planet, where she was to return.
"Perhaps one day you shall tell me yours."
Her great wings opened.
"I shall try to visit again. Soon, I promise. Goodbye, dear moon."
And so she was off. With a great push and the flapping of wings, Princess Luna made her way back to the planet she called home. The next day, as she left her room, she met Celestia on her way to the dining hall. The great princess asked Luna to accompany her to Ponyville. Being polite as always, Luna accepted graciously. The palace could be a very lonely place sometimes. So, within the hour, they boarded a carriage and set off, pulled by only the finest Pegasi in the land. As Luna rode, she looked up at the sun and down at the ponies playing and laughing on this, a most beautiful of days. She thought back to her talk with the moon. She wondered if perhaps where it was now, it might shine on such play, but she knew it was but an idle dream. They arrived in town quite shortly. Princess Celestia urged Luna to do as she wished while she tended to royal business, noting that the smaller pony seemed depressed. Luna protested against the idea of wandering around on her own, but eventually relented. As she walked, many ponies waved and said hello. Out of politeness, she did the same. She was not acclimated to being of royalty. The attention unnerved her slightly. After buying a few sweets from a local shop, whose owners refused to let her pay, she sat on a bench under a tall oak munching on the candy. Despite the sun, she felt cold, without quite knowing why. Still she sat. Several ponies offered to do things for her, or offered her gifts, but she politely declined. She did not want their services or presents, no matter how lavish. Though they tried and tried and tried, she again declined and declined and declined. Soon a small pony in a red bow came up and asked for one of her sweets.
You may have one,
she said softly. The filly ate the candy quickly and stared at Luna for a while.
Why are you so sad, miss?
She asked.
I am not sad.
She said quickly.
Just a bit tired is all.
Are you sure?
Said the filly, looking at her with the knowing eyes that only the young possess. Luna paused for a minute.
No,
she said softly, and at that, she began to cry. The filly tried to comfort her, but it did not help. Many other ponies tried their best, doing tricks, telling jokes, but they too ultimately failed. So the Princess of the Moon kept crying and crying for a very long time. No one could console her. The tears just flowed and flowed. Then suddenly, the sky darkened. Quite an odd thing for the middle of the afternoon. Every pony looked up at the sky, craning their necks to try and see what had happened. The little filly who had taken the candy rushed over.
Miss! Hey, miss!
She cried. Luna continued to sob.
Miss! Look up!
Through her sobs, Luna did as the child bid. And there, hanging in the sky, was a large object blocking out the sun. Luna gasped.
an eclipse,
she whispered. It was at this time that Princess Celestia galloped over.
Did you do this, Luna?
She asked.
There's no eclipse scheduled for today.
She told her sister that she had done nothing to cause the eclipse, and as she spoke she looked around. Every pony in the small town, and she knew, perhaps for a time, in the world, stared up at the moon. They oohed and they ahed, and soon they went about their daily lives, laughing and playing under the moon in the middle of the day. And she realized she was no longer crying. Later, as they boarded the carriage and the eclipse slowly ended, she looked up and said,
"Thank you, dear moon."
The